Denver Mayor Michael Hancock presented a $1.9 billion 2017 budget this week, which includes money to hire 48 new police officers and put $5 million towards an affordable housing plan. Eric, we have a strong mayor version form of government for Denver. So this is likely going to be the budget. The city council might tweak it a little bit, but this is essentially going to be it. What did you think?
The initial reviews of the budget from city council people were positive, that this hits most of the priorities they should hit. Clearly there's a significant increase in policing in the central business district, primarily the mall. That is necessary. There's the affordable housing piece. That's also necessary. You can color me somewhat dubious that $5 million or even $15 million when you bring the extra 10 that's being debated is going to really be sufficient to address that issue. And I don't know, haven't seen a lot of examples around the country where government as an institution, local government, can meaningfully address that issue, but it is an issue that the public wants addressed, and so city government is going to make an effort. The real thing to me, Dominic, is less about the budget and it's more about where Mayor Hancock is. I think he's in a fairly precarious place. For somebody who was just reelected a year plus change ago by an overwhelming margin, he is very glad that this election is not this year. I think events are somewhat getting away from him. I flash back to this is ancient history in Denver, but in 1979, Bill McNichols was reelected almost by acclamation. There wasn't a real potent opposition. And 4 years later, he didn't even make the runoff. Now, we'll see if Michael Hancock is running again in 3 years from now. He could run for a third term if he wants. He hasn't yet indicated one way or the other. But I think that third term could be very difficult because of issues of traffic, of congestion, of growth, of policing, of homelessness. This is a city that is going through boom times, but a lot of the problems are landing at the mayor's doorstep, and I think there's increasing frustration with how they're being handled.
Penn, within the budget it says money for 48 new police officers. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's a decent number. Is it enough?
It remains to be seen. I think both of the issues that you've highlighted, the police officers and the Affordable Housing Fund, are indicative of some of the issues that Eric talked about. We've got boom times, tremendous growth, but this is not just Hancock. For years, the city has lagged behind in keeping up with some of the infrastructure needs that are necessary. $5 million is a good start. It's going to be difficult to do a whole lot with it. Execution, having a plan and executing on the plan is going to be key. In terms of the police officers, this is really going to be closely watched because the issue is going to be who's recruited, who's hired, where are they deployed, and sort of going back to one of our other topics, Brandon Marshall and Chief White, how are they trained? Mm-hmm. If you hire more people who simply exacerbate the existing problem, that's not good. I am convinced this mayor will not let that happen. I don't think Stephanie O'Malley, the manager of safety, will let that happen. But that's going to be the true test. That's what people are going to be looking for. Who's recruited, who's hired, how are they trained, and how are they deployed? And we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. But it's probably the right emphasis at this time.
Patty, what did you think? Did we see the right highlights coming out of this budget?
It does look good in theory. I mean, we're talking about how the police are trained. We just learned last night, I guess, that one of the heads of the cadet training got bumped because of bullying. That's not a good lesson in how our law enforcement officers are being trained. And I think Eric's right that people are getting tired of not hearing about what's happening with streets, what's happening with traffic, what's happening with parking. And that discontent could boil over in the next few years, especially if the economy takes a slide, because just driving around town, I think I hit 5 different places where the roads were being fixed. That's okay, but it's inconveniencing people who used to just kind of love how easy it was to get around in this city and also to communicate in this city, and that's another place where we have roadblocks.
David, your thoughts on the 2017 budget proposed by Hancock?
It'll result in about 4 more officers at any given time in the downtown area, broadly defined, which is not just the mall. That's a good step, probably not close to sufficient by itself to solve the problem. There's some good things in the budget which work on some of the root causes of the crime problem, including on the mall, which is one thing called a solution center, which both of these they have, but they're continuing them and appropriately funding them, so that there's a place for people having behavioral health emergencies or homelessness have some place to go right there where they can get immediate help. and then also a program they called co-responders, where you hook up law enforcement officers with mental health professionals so that there's somebody who can help with the homeless people and hopefully get them into city services and most importantly, into treatment. There's also, I think, a problem in the budget, which is $2.5 million to replace existing garbage cans with things you have to wheel out to the front of your house. That can be more efficient for the pickup, but it's also tough on, say, elderly people who can't wheel them, and we haven't seen anything yet from the city about what they're going to do about that.